ladies and gentlemen, and welcome.
Good evening.
Very bad. And welcome to Rhymes of the Times 2011, a wry look back over the year's events. Journalists are fracking. No, they're not. Journalists are hacking. Geologists are fracking. Rioters ransacking 2011. The public sector's sacking. Money's sorely lacking. MPs are backtracking when it suits them. 2011. The Eurozone is cracking. Gaddafi is sent packing. The Taliban is still attacking. 2011. The England rugby team is slacking. The cricket is nerve-wracking. Wills and Kate try out kayaking. 2011. So this year started off very gloomily. I don't know about you, but almost everybody I came across was either faced with the prospect of redundancy, had someone in their family who was faced with the prospect of redundancy, someone where they worked, there was some department they were going to close. It was just cuts, cuts, cuts. And it reminded me of a poem written by this gentleman, who is called Pastor Niemöller, and he wrote a poem called 1938. And his poem began, "First they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew." And so it went on. So my poem is called 2011, and it goes, "First they cut the music teachers. I did not speak out because I was not a music teacher. Then they cut the careers service, and I did not speak out because I was not a careers advisor. Then they cut the libraries, and I did not speak out because I was not a librarian. Then they cut me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." And I think a key question of the year became, what does each one of us do in the face of these savage cuts to our public services? So in the midst of all this austerity, this talk of cuts, 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 the bankers still wanted their massive bonuses. It was quite jaw-dropping. I have here, what's it? The government is resigned to UK banks paying out billions of pounds in bonuses this year, despite its calls to curb the pavement. So even the government couldn't stop the banks giving out these massive bonuses to banks that, as far as I understand, we own. It was a bit of a mystery to me. Anyhow, in 2009, I made my views known on this matter in verse, and my opinions have not changed since. And they are, the bankers want their bonus, but the onus is, I say, on the bankers now to thank us for the billions we put their way. Their bonanza was a cancer, and it's eaten half away our economy, so it's gotta be, it's time for them to pay. You may disagree, or not.
It's very difficult to disagree with that.
We're not sure whether to clap at these things. How would you...
If you're absolutely overwhelmed, I would, but otherwise it would probably make it. But feel free to giggle. Does anybody know what this is? It is, it's a Kindle, and in, have we got a musical accompaniment?
Oh, somebody's phone. No? Kindle phone.
Sorry about that, it's a musical tie.
Oh, fantastic. So, sorry, did you say it was a musical tie? I've never been upstaged by a musical tie before.
Well done.
I will remember my trip to Poppleton. So, yes, this is a Kindle, and in January of this year, Amazon in the US announced that for the first time it had sold more Kindle books than it had sold physical paperback books, which was quite a remarkable transition really in the world of publishing. And as it happens, in January, I brought out my first Kindle book. Ta-da! Did battle with the technology, but it is eminently possible. Amazon provides the technology, and you can just, it converts your files into a Kindle book. So, Rhymes of the Times 2010. The reason I flag this up is because one of the poems that's in Rhymes of the Times 2010 is this poem, which was when Tony Blair appeared before the Chilcot inquiry to investigate Iraq, the war in Iraq. And in January 2011, he was called back to the Chilcot inquiry. So this poem was inspired by a dictum of Churchill's, which is to jaw is always better than to...
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Jaw, about the war. Blair, he was there. Try to find out why. Might, he knows was right. War, what's it for? Blair, was it fair? Why did my son die? Pray for peace one day. However, it turned out you didn't have to be somewhere far-flung to be in danger in January of this year. Does anybody recognise this gentleman? Oh my goodness. This was 40-year-old Jay Chin from Plymouth, who ended up in accident and emergency because a moth flew into his ear. And he couldn't get it out. This is him. He tried to get it out with the Hoover, but the Hoover didn't work. So then he ended up in accident and emergency. They tried various methods and did eventually get this moth out. This was national news. I'm very shocked that it hasn't reached you here in Poppleton. So I was disappointed. As you may remember, I'm a bit of an amateur entomologist, and I was disappointed because none of the reports said what sort of moth it was. Most important part of the story. You may know there's about 56 butterflies in Britain, but there are about 2,500 moths. So there were all sorts it could have been. Moths, there are many, just out of sight. Some fly in the daytime, some fly at night. Some brightly coloured, some dark, some white. Moths, there are many, just out of sight. We have noctuids, hawk moths and ermines in Britain, fanfoots and footmen, tiger moths, kitten moths, snouts and processionaries, clearwings, a few, bloom tips, geometers, hook tips too. Moths, there are many, some hefty, some slight. Look and you'll see them at rest or in flight, drawn to nectar, drawn to light. Moths, there are many, a world of delight. Unless you happen to have one stuck down your ear, of course. However, these are all pictures I took of moths here in York, so there are a vast number to admire and to keep clear of your ear.
Anneliese,
Yes, sir.
could you move the thing over because we can't see the picture?
Oh, you can't see it. Put me where you need me.
Can you still see?
I can still see. Joyce, you couldn't just check that that machine there could still see.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry, that's fine. If you look, can it still
Yes.
see? Oh, fantastic. Right. So, to distract ourselves from all the gloom and doom and ongoing danger of flying moths, we flocked to YouTube. The YouTube sensation of January, I don't know if any of you saw it, was a video. I'm afraid I haven't got the video itself. It was a video of a lady coming out of a shopping mall, a shop in a shopping mall in America, and she was fiddling on her phone, and she was fiddling so much that she fell headlong into the water feature. And this, it went viral, is that the term? Anyhow, millions and millions of people were watching this on YouTube. Now, had they Had they listened to my poem, this lady here, had she listened, this accident would never have happened. Who says poetry is not useful? The chief defect of Henry Sloane was texting on his mobile phone. His mother, the recipient of all his texts, was impotent to staunch the flow of mangled words that issued from his thumbs in herds. He texted morning, noon and night. She couldn't see an end in sight. He texted her before he woke. He texted, unlike normal folk, to let her know he was awake. From across the hall, for heaven's sake. He texted often, if you please, to say he was about to sneeze. He texted her when he got home. Why not the doorbell? Why the phone? From texting he would not desist. It nearly drove Mum round the twist. And from lack of use, his voice grew weak and... Excuse me, he texted her but would not speak. From lack of use, his voice grew weak. And friends, this texting was not cheap. The monthly bill made Mother weep. So she sought a cure for his disease from an establishment that charged high fees. Yes, his mother hoped that boarding school would solve the problem. Ha! What a fool. Texting mater from the dorm is, it transpires, quite the norm. And though it's frowned upon in prep, Henry soon learned to sidestep this rule and also found in class ways to text his mum. Alas. Driven nearly to the brink, his mother sensibly, I think, removed him from there without pomp and sent him to the local, where texting, of course, is also rife. My friends, it is a fact of life and death, I am afraid to say. For as dear Henry made his way from school last Thursday afternoon, texting that he'd be home soon, head bent over keypad he, lost in mobile reverie, didn't notice what he oughter, which led to his untimely slaughter. The gory details I shall abjure. Suffice to say, he is no more. A life cut short, a text unsent. The reason why is evident. Addiction to technology reduces life expectancy. This fact, I feel, is worth remembering, so you all avoid a vile dismembering.
Lovely.
Is that okay? Excellent. Right, we move from January, unsurprisingly, to February. Do you know who these chappies are, why they were in the news?
Yeah.
Pakistani cricketers, indeed, who were found guilty of spot fixing. But it wasn't only in the world of cricket. The world of sumo wrestling was rocked by a match-fixing scandal to such an extent that the Japan Sumo Association cancelled its Grand Sumo tournament for the first time in 65 years because at least 12 wrestlers were suspected of match-fixing. Now, this Grand Sumo tournament is called the Spring Basho. So, here are my thoughts on this subject. So, Basho, this year, no go. Tokyo, sumo, lost its mojo. Why so? Big blow, match fix, a go-go. Fair play, ho ho, dead as a bird. Any idea what this story is?
Oh, yes.
Yep. So the Condemns decided they wanted to sell off the forests, and the week before this was debated in the House of Commons, there had been a report on knife crime submitted. So it got to this time in the Parliament when I thought you were really starting to see the difference between New Labour when they had been in power and the Condemns. So my poem is called Knife Crime. Passé the largesse, the bonhomie, the insouciance. We've come to cut, to axe, to fell. We do that well. Watch out. Timber! Do I think, did they change their minds about that? Yes, MP's backtracking. Mhm. Ah, anybody know who this is? Oh, you disappoint me. Yeah, precisely, you disappoint me. In February, this chappie came to the screens of CBeebies. A ray of sunshine for us all. This is Rastamouse. Rastamouse. And he goes around Mouseland solving crimes. Always here to make a bad thing good. There was a lot of controversy that Rastamouse would start making little children speak in perhaps not the exact correct accent. I have to say, he made me speak in not quite the local patois, put it that way. So, wagwan. Well, what's gwan is that the Governor of the Bank of England blames all these spending cuts on the bank bailouts. And he says, this is the Governor of the Bank of England, says he's surprised we're not more up in arms about it. Which is quite a thing for the Governor of the Bank of England to say. So, here is my Rastamouse-inspired poem about where we're at in February. I think I might need a bit more practice on this accent, so just bear with me, okay? I'm trying here. It's called Despair. This country been destroyed. This government dissing the people. Dismantling, disregarding, discarding. It's a disgrace. How we can make a bad thing good? That is the good. Yes, that's the good. A little bit more practice on the accent, but how we can make a bad thing good. The good people of Barnsley thought they could make a bad thing good in their local by-election by having the Lib Dems come sixth and lose their deposit. Flag of Afghanistan. It could well be, but I'm hoping that it's also the flag of, gosh, all these exotic, I'm hoping it's the flag of a near neighbour of ours. I'm hoping it's the Irish flag. It could well be Tunisia, and who knows? Who knows?
Just the opposite way around.
Yes, so in November of last year, the Celtic tiger economy of the previous decade had to be bailed out by the EU to the tune of 90 billion euros. And then in March of this year, they discovered that wasn't enough. Oh no, they needed another 24 billion euros. So what happened to this fabulous Celtic tiger economy? I highly recommend this book, which on the one hand is the funniest book I've read in years, and on the other hand is one of the most tragic. How they managed to cock up the whole thing. So with apologies to William Blake, this is the tiger. Oh, this is another accent I might need to work a bit harder on, but there. Celtic tiger, not so bright, felled by rampant property blight. Brussels' banking arm will try to tame thy wild economy. What's the Egypts, what's the crooks who borrowed big and cooked the books? Financial regulation iffy, dodgy dealings by the Liffey. Celtic tiger, piteous plight, lost your economic might. Your suffering people asking why you led them back to poverty. And there really are some terribly sad stories coming out of Ireland. However, in April, we had something to smile about. Could forget all our troubles, all our woes. It was the wedding. It was. It was the wedding. And I was asked by Radio York to go in and write some poems to inspire the listeners to write some royal wedding poems. And it was very exciting because I was supposed to be there just for a little bit, but we all sort of got a bit carried away, and I ended up spending the whole morning there sort of commentating on the royal wedding as it was happening, so it was all terribly exciting. So I wrote them a whole slew of poems. I wrote them royal wedding clerihews and haikus and rhyming couplets and all sorts of things to inspire the listeners. This was my Westminster Abbey limerick. There once was a bride-to-be, Kate, who decided to make William wait. But her timing went wrong, and he waited so long, he ended up lying in state. My dad came up with one, which was, right, his was hip hip hooray, it's royal wedding day, Kate's got her wills, he'll be paying the bills. Anyhow, there was one, I wrote one that was a long one that was suitably patriotic, and wishing the couple well. There was also one I didn't have the chance to perform, and it was about who was invited. So we had the great and the good from myriad nations, plus relics of Kates from less high-ranking stations. There were men from the military, men from the ministry, men who hold various posts of divinity, diplomats, presidents, despots and kings, wearing all manner of interesting things. Turbans and saris, top hats and tails, surplices, kilts, jalabas and veils. Elegant frocks, some purchased up here in Harrogate, out of my price range, I fear. Everyone stunning, done up to impress, but the whole world only has eyes for the dress. The beautiful, beautiful dress. There were two other sartorial sensations of the day. The first one was more of an anatomical sensation. I had emails after that from around the world from male friends of mine, grown men who were asking me if they thought they were in with a chance with Pippa Middleton. The other sartorial sensation was Beatrice's hand. Now, my mother cut out a piece from the newspaper for me about this, and the headline was, Beatrice's head topiary was like Medusa crossed with a pretzel. And the first line of this article, I thought it was fantastic, was, could the antennae on Princess Beatrice's head really have played a part in finally locating Osama bin Laden? Or is it possible Beatrice is the missing fifth Teletubby? Fabulous. So we had a bit of time off in April, and then it was back to the serious stuff. So we had our referendum on AV. AV or not AV? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to suffer in the mind, to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous first past the post, or to take a stand against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to count, to vote tactically no more, and by PR to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that Westminster is heir to. 'Tis a referendum devoutly to be wished. So we had the referendum. At the referendum we went, we cast our votes, and we had the results. AV is not to be. It's out of the question. This is my mum. And in June, it was her birthday, and far be it from me to disclose a lady's age, but I can tell you that preparations are well underway for her 80th birthday party next year. So this year, having never in her life had anything to do with computers whatsoever, at all, she announced she wanted a laptop. I blame the BBC. You know, they had this first click campaign trying to get everyone online. Yes, well, so we got her a laptop, but I was very worried that it might turn out a bit like this. I was the one who was supposed to teach her this. Okay, so Cody is trying to keep his cool. but the chances are looking quite slim. Who in the history of creation had a grandpa so hopelessly dim? Gramps wants to master computers, and Cody is showing him how, but I reckon this lesson, as ever, will end in a furious row. But you know how to open a JPEG. I showed you last week umpteen times. Well, I'm sorry, I just can't remember. Add forgetting to the list of my crimes. Did you back up the work we did earlier? Did I, what? Back it up? I don't know. Let's reply to this email. How's that done? Click up here. What, on this thing here? No! How do I print out this table? You press Control-P and then wait. And don't turn it off without saving. Without what? Oh, never mind. It's too late. Cody has tried to be patient, but his patience has just worn too thin. Never try teaching computers to dinosaur-dumb kith and kin. However, at this juncture, I have to say my mum took to it like a duck to water, and she's been emailing and printing off JPEGs, and she was even doing some Miss Marple sleuthing on the internet the other day, so take my hat off to her. So if any of you haven't taken the plunge, do, because it really has changed her life. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I've sellotaped 2 pages together. Ooh, ooh. Well, meanwhile, while I find out where I am, there we are. Yes, this lady is. It is indeed, yes. Another lady who's been doing interesting things with the technology recently. And, of course, in July, News of the World folded. The hacks who've been hacking have lost Murdoch's backing. He's closing the News of the World. Whopping is hopping mad. James's red topping dad dodges abuse being hurled. CEO Brooks, she of fiery red looks, broke the news to the journos as bidden. Why is she staying on when the others have gone? She knows where the skeletons are hidden. Interestingly, I upset a journalist with this poem. I have an agent who I send some of my topical poems to, and he sends them to the media to see if anyone's interested. And a journo wrote back, emailed back and said, usually I find these poems very amusing, but this time... But a week later, she went as well. So I stand by my poems. Right, we seem to have just split it slightly between June and July here, for which I apologise, but this is equally relevant in July. So, sound of summer, June, July, August, bumblebees. And I was commissioned by the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. They wanted me to write a political poem about the importance of bees. So, I wrote them a political poem about the importance of bees, and I wondered, it's the sort of poem you have to join in with. So I wondered if you'd feel willing to join in with a political poem about bees. Fantastic. So what you have to do, I say, what do we want? And you have to say, lots more flowers. And I say, when do we want them? And you have to say, now. Okay? So what do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
Fantastic. We, bzz, bee, bzz, the big society. Bzz, freebie, freebie. Pollinate with glee bee. We don't want no pay rise. We don't want more dosh. What good would that do us? Dosh we can't nosh. We don't want more redis, bondulis or dough. Our hike in our salary, once again, no. But what do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
We don't want no aggro, we don't want to picket, industrial action, you know where to stick it. We don't want to walk out, go slow work to rule, but we do have one grievance. We need more fuel. What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
If you like your ketchup, if you like baked beans, strawberries, raspberries, know what that means? If you like your apples in pudding or crumble, it means you're dependent on bees that are bumble. What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
The means of production? That would be us. We pollinate your crops with no bother or fuss. We don't claim no overtime, sick pay or pension. No end of year bonus, but we would like to mention, what do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
A future that's bee-free is seed-free, is dead. Let's fashion a bounteous future instead. We're in this together, can't go it alone. Feed us, we'll feed you, as we hope we have shown. What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Lots more flowers.
When do we want them?
Now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed on behalf of the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. Right. Yes, now, in July, so we're flitting a bit, but in July there was, the Royal Entomological Society held an insect festival in the Museum Gardens here in York. And it was a big day for me because I signed my first ever book contract with this publisher here, who is Bramblebee Books. So it's going to be my buzzing book. I think I performed here, didn't I, my buzzing show all about the creepy crawlies. So at the insect festival, I helped out on the moth stand. And the big draw on the moth stand was this. This is a sort of a microscope that's attached to the computer. And what we were looking at was horse chestnut leaves. And inside the horse chestnut leaves are, have you seen the horse chestnut trees with leaves that are going all brown? And they're going brown because of a moth called a horse chestnut leaf miner. Very, very tiny. And so with the aid of the microscope, we were able to see them. So this is what the chestnut trees have been looking like. And they were first observed in, it seems to be a relatively recent phenomenon, first observed in Macedonia in 1984 and have been sweeping the country. Mine! Oh yes, well hang on. These are leaf miners, okay, just so this makes sense. Mine, oh mine! This tree is all mine, and my brothers and sisters and cousins, and in time we will secure complete domination of all the horse chestnuts in this great nation. Ha! I don't know, but they are, they're just everywhere. They really seem to have taken Britain by storm. However, so we were telling everybody at the RES festival that these had arrived relatively recently, within the last decade or two. However, a week later, scientists discovered that actually they had been here for over a century, and people they hadn't noticed them before. So I think they found in some of their archives, they found that there had been some over a century previously, but I think suddenly the conditions must be right for them, because I don't remember the chestnut trees looking like that before. However, apparently these leaf miners don't actually kill the horse chestnut. It's this bleeding canker that's the thing that's actually killing the horse chestnuts. I live in Heslington. 2 of our chestnuts have had to be felled because of it. I don't know about how they are here. Whereas apparently these leaf miners don't kill them. But it seems to me that once there's a critical mass of them and there's no green left, then they won't be able to photosynthesize. Anyhow, everything you always wanted to know about moths, but were afraid to ask, was at the Moth Day at St Nicholas Fields, York Environment Centre, in August. Some of you may have missed this seminal event, in which case I'll bring you up to speed quickly with the key point, which is, what is a moth? You'd think it's quite a simple question, but this is a moth. This is not. This is a butterfly. And if you ask why it's not a moth, I'll say it's because it's got clubs at the end of its antennae. See? Whereas moths' antennae are far more feathery. Except for Casnidae moths that have got clubs and skipper butterflies that haven't. This is a moth. This is not. This is a butterfly. And if you ask why it's not a moth, I'll say it's because, amongst other things, of the plane of its wings. You see, moths spread their wings out flat when they're at rest, whereas butterflies hold them up close to their chest. Except for skipper butterflies that hold them out flat and geometry moths that don't. This is a moth. This is noth. This is a butterfly. And if you ask why it's not a moth, I'll say it's because moths fly at night, butterflies in the day. Surely that's the most obvious way to tell them apart, except that it isn't. There are loths and loths of day-flying moths. The boundaries are blurred, as you can see. When does noise become music? When's a bush a tree? To solve this conundrum, it's better to opt for a name that suits all of them, to wit. So I don't know why we have this distinction between two sets of things that are actually identical. Well, crossover. Right. After that harsh winter we had, fantastic bounteous fruit harvest in the summer. Did you have loads and loads of fruit?
Yep.
Fantastic. So this bounty brought with it for some people some problems. What do you do with it all? My husband overheard a lady in a bookshop frantically looking for jam recipes, and he came home and said, this lady had said, I'm 66 and I've never made jam. So this is my poem built up from that. So I've smoked a joint in Amsterdam, hurled abuse at Uncle Sam, marched with the masses on the Kurfürstendam, but here I am, 8 pounds of plums and I've never made jam. I'm 66 and I've never made jam. Often made love, never pushed a pram. Thank the Lord for the diaphragm. Pondered religion, what a sham, but I'm 66 and I've never made jam. I can spout about Marx ad nauseam, punt for miles along the cam, hold my own in a poetry slam, but I'm 66 and I've never made jam. 66, here I am. 66, have a wee dram. 66, never made jam. 66, and I don't give a damn. I have to say, with all this bounty, my husband did make jam for the first time this year. It was fantastic. Now, September. This is the footsie. Whee! Didn't have a very good August. The euro was cracking up left, right and centre. Robert Peston was trying to explain this all to us, but it's getting very complicated. So it's all Greek to me. Are we in a depression or just a recession? When will the footsie stop falling? Whee! Will Greece default or its people revolt? When will the politicians stop stalling? Will the euro survive? Will the markets revive? To the Germans, it's all very galling. In the mark, they could trust. Now it's all turned to dust. And the outlook is simply falling. Right, so while these huge, tumultuous events were going on the international stage, every time I turned on Radio York, there was another breathless instalment of the, do you know what this is? The tree. And do you remember the village? Urton, yes, it was the Urton Beach saga. It was the irksome Urton Beach. And for those of you who don't know, there were some people in the village wanted this tree felled, and other people didn't want the tree felled. So there's been a 5-year-long legal battle to save the tree, which has cost North Yorkshire County Council, and hence the taxpayers, £250,000. So, Radio York, it was, oh, somebody's gone up the tree, oh, somebody's come down the tree, oh my goodness gracious me, will it come down, will it not, will they manage to fell it, will there be a stay of execution? So this is the irksome Urton Beach. In the Yorkshire village of Urton, the visitors are, I shall start again. In the Yorkshire village of Urton, the residents are uncertain about whether they'll see their favourite tree next time they pull back the curtain. And I'm afraid to say that finally it was felled. Does anybody have a blackberry?
No bet.
In the freezer, yes. Well, in October, I think blackberries are gizmos that lots of business people have, and they do rely on them. send emails and things. So in October, BlackBerry went down across Europe. Nobody could send any emails. And this was the same month that this lady published her autobiography. Do you know who she is? Jeanette Winterson, yeah. Winterson, yeah. And her autobiography was called Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal? But it reminded me, her first book was, do you remember the title of that? Oranges. Yeah. Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, which is the title of my BlackBerry poem. Do you see where we're going? Oranges, fruit, blackberry. Okay, so I'm blowing a raspberry at my bloody BlackBerry. It's let me down big. I had a plum job, raspberry plum job, but couldn't email Bob, so I lost the whole gig. I have to tweet today, cum quot may. This I can't rejig. So I bought an iPhone, defected to Apple's own, and I don't give a fig. So of course, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, many, many iconic Apple products that changed the world really, died in October, mourned across the world. Oh, we're back to the Eurozone. Do you recognise any of the people in this picture? Berlusconi, this chappie here, yeah. Papandreou. And this lady, I have to say, I didn't know who she was. She is Prime Minister, President of Denmark, apparently. But I think the key players here are your Berlusconi and your Papandreou. So this is a week in November, a week in politics, Eurozone style. So, if Papandreou would give way to someone new, then Greece, we think, might be held back from the brink. If only Berlusconi would go we, might save Italia the brave. Their economies down the drain, their people in great pain, to power each leader still clings. They're all democracies, yet their huge sovereign debt means the markets are pulling the strings. And I did think this was a bit strange, because in the end both went, Berlusconi and Papandreou went, but I couldn't quite see what this said about democracy. So Papandreou went first. Okay. And, right, you may be offended by this, close your eyes if you are, I found these on the internet. Then Berlusconi went. So, moving swiftly on. Talking of how women are treated in society, Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Perth in November, and they agreed to change the rules of succession. So currently we have Her Majesty on the throne, and next in line is Charles, and after him comes William, and then we're waiting to see who comes next. Now, when they change the rules of succession, whether Will's and Kate's first baby is a girl or a boy, that will be the next monarch. So, this is called Girls Aloud. The line of succession has relied on possession of a chromosome that dangled. The next heir to the crown's the first baby that crowns regardless of sex. How newfangled. Yes, it's soon to be legal for a girl to be regal. We won't have to wait for a boy. A Rex or Regina from a royal vagina. Equality at last. Oh joy. So bring on the legislation banning sex discrimination. Then William and Kate, please don't tarry. Don't leave it too late, or else our fate will be an unreconstructed King Harry.
Completely fine. I love it.
Right. Do you want a quick one about babies? November, the question was, is she pregnant? Is Kate pregnant? There were lots of rumours that she was. I even read somewhere that she was expecting twins. So I had a quick thought. I was thinking about babies and young. So geese, because when you think about it, geese have goslings, salmon have, maybe salmon? Fry. Hares have leverets, don't ask me why. Swans have, foxes have, cows have, beetles have grubs. Gnu gnuggets. Squid have squiggles. Otters have totters. And worms have wriggles. Deer have darlings. A platypus has platykittens. Their claws are quite sharp, so they wear platymittens. Moths have mitts. Parakeets have parotweeties. Owls have howls. And marmosets have mama sweeties. Hippos have happies. Egos have ids. Camels have camellias. And let us hope that Wills and Kate will have kids. Right. What do you notice about these three people? They're all men, they're all bishops, yes, but we are moving closer to this. A lady bishop. And it is moving closer. This is a saga that has been going on, and many people hold very, very dear beliefs about this. But in October, 28 of the 30 C of E diocesan synods voted to allow women bishops, so it does look like it's going to start happening. And then in November, Archbishop of Canterbury urged the fast-tracking of women bishops into the House of Lords. So it really does seem now as if this is going to happen, doesn't it? So I wrote a limerick about this called Synodities. And on New Year's Eve last year, I was on Woman's Hour on Radio 4, and they asked me to perform and write certain poems. They wanted me to perform this poem, Synodities, but then they phoned me up and said, no, we've been told you can't do it. They said, we really want you to, but you can't. So I said, okay, fine. And then I was driving along, I just reached Manchester, where the studio is. Then there was a call on my mobile. I said, yes, we've gone to a higher level of management, and now they say you can perform it, you can. So this is a slightly controversial poem about women bishops. If this is a topic you hold dear and you feel you may be offended, then I suggest it's a short poem. Just put your fingers in your ears, and I'll do this when the coast is clear. So, traditionalists opine that a chick to the rank and file clergy must stick. Wearing mitred regalia requires the right genitalia. The clue's in the name, bishopric. My defence was it's their word. Bishopric. Right. Oh yes, we're back to Ireland and its huge public debt. Do you remember it had to borrow, I don't know, they loaned it anyhow. They were bailed out by to the tune of 90 billion last year, then another 24 billion. And then they discover, in November, down the side of the sofa, they discover 3.6 billion euros that they didn't know they had. The Celtic tiger not so bright. I have looked down the side of my sofa. There is no 3.6 billion euros, but it does make you wonder slightly about the accuracy of the rest of their sums, doesn't it really, if they had 3.6 billion they didn't know they had. Oh, and then we're back to the bankers. Do you know which banker this man is?
Goodwin.
It isn't Goodwin, no, though originally that's what who this poem was written for. This man is Eric Daniels, and he is the former CEO of Lloyd's, that I believe we own quite a bit of. And at last the tide does seem to be turning when it comes to bankers and their bonuses. Lloyd's Banking Group, I quote, is seeking to claw back up to 50% of the 1.45 million bonus it handed to former Chief Executive Eric Daniels earlier this year. At last, lawyers acting on behalf of the part nationalised lender have informed Mr. Daniels and senior executives at the bank that it plans to claw back parts of their bonuses. So you will remember my views on this subject. The bankers want their bonus, but the onus is, I say, on the bankers now to thank us for the billions we put their way. Their bonanza was a cancer and it's eaten half away our economy, so it's time for them to pay. And at last, it does look like they may not be paying, but at least they're paying back some of these bonuses, which, silly me, I thought you got if you'd done something well. Now, Terry's and Cadbury's have both been taken over in the past few years by
Kraft.
Yes. Can you remember what happened after Kraft bought Terry's?
They got rid of a lot of them.
Yes, they shut it down, didn't they? They shut it. Right. So when Kraft took over Cadbury's when was that? Last January, I wrote this poem, and unfortunately it has come to pass. My father-in-law lives in Bourneville, which is where one of the Cadbury's factories is. The crafty buggers have won the day. Watch out, Bourneville, is what I say. I should cocoa. Down our way. They bought up Terry's, to our dismay, shut the factory, left the UK. And on the 7th of December this year, food giant Kraft is to axe 200 jobs. Union leaders at Cadbury in Birmingham have said they got no answers at a meeting to discuss Kraft Foods' plans to cut 200 jobs at 3 of its sites, including Bourneville in Birmingham. What a surprise. This is back to my book. Do you remember in July, I signed a contract for my buzzing book? And over the course of the last 8 years, I've taken about 100 photographs that are going to be in this buzzing book. But I had one photo that I still had to take. We're at proof stage already, so we've got the cover of my buzzing book now, ta-da! But I needed a picture of a wasp's nest. And so I sent out an email to lots of different people saying, have you got a wasp's nest that I can come and photograph for my buzzing book? And somebody at the University of York, there's a scheme called Opal there that does community science. They had a wasp's nest, so they let me go and photograph it. So this is just a week ago tomorrow. Yes, a week ago, got the last photo for my buzzing book, and it goes with this poem about the wasp. I don't know if any of you have ever seen wasps in your garden nibbling the wood.
Yes.
We wasps are rather clever. We wasps are rather smart. We nibble up your furniture and turn it into art. We're engineers come artists. And what we like the best is swirling different colours round our perfect paper nests. Yes, you heard right. We said paper. We told you we're not daft. Eons before you humans, we invented paper craft. If you look, this is a wasp's nest. And what they do with this wood that they chew up is make paper. So when you start wrapping your Christmas presents this year, quick thank you to the wasps who came up with the idea to start with. And it is indeed Christmas time now, so merely remains for me to wish you all a very happy turkey, crackers, carols, presents, puddings, cards, tinsel, baubles, candles, holly and charades, mistletoe and chestnuts, snowmen, robins, beer, wrapping paper mountains, mulled wine, which I believe we're about to have, and good cheer, reindeer, myrrh and sleigh bells, black ice, freezing fog, peace, goodwill, and ho, 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 a furtive, festive snog, mince pies, Scrooge, a Yule log, shepherds and a star, the Queen's speech on the telly, relies from afar, a partridge in a pear tree, bye-bye lully-lulay, God rest ye merry gentlemen, jingle all the way.